Hi everyone, and welcome back to A Student's Guide to Studying Smarter. Today I will be talking to Josie, a current psychology honours student, who will be sharing with us some tips on how we can best master a skill. Welcome to the show, Josie.
It's great to be here, Chelsea.
Well, I believe that everyone finds that learning a new skill can be frustrating. I'm sure our listeners can agree. There are definitely days where we practice and practice, but fail to see any results when we actually try and perform what we learned. So Josie, based on your expertise, is there any explanation of why this happened?
Definitely. It is a common thing that we perform better in practice than in real life situation. Just the other day, I was speaking to a friend who mentioned that he was feeling demotivated after losing a basketball game, despite being able to get the ball in the hoop consistently during his practices. He failed to score during his first game. I asked him how he normally practices, and I believe that this is the most common method people use to train their shooting. This is what we in psychology call fixed practice, where the individual practices in the same routine every time. However, this is not the most effective way of learning or mastering a skill.
Really? I thought that him practicing the same way so that he can fully master the shot would be the most optimal way to practice. In that case, what would you suggest is a better way of practicing to help us achieve better performance?
Well, there's this way of practicing called variable practice that has shown to be effective in helping you remember new information you want to learn or a skill you want to master. Back in 1975, Richard Schmidt suggests that we need to deliberately vary how we practice something across different dimensions that may vary when we perform a skill.
Does that mean we need to practice how we want to perform?
Exactly.
Can you give us an example of it?
Imagine when players are playing a game of basketball, they have to try to get the ball through the hoop from all angles or whilst being blocked. Therefore, according to Schmidt, the best way to prepare for all these possible scenarios is to practice all of them. So for basketball, not only do you practice shooting from directly in front of the hoop, but also from the sides, up close, far away, and even with an obstacle acting as a competing player blocking your shot.
That's true. When I think more deeply about the purpose of practicing, it makes sense. If we do the same thing over and over and come against something different, it will come as a shock and we won't know how to handle it.
There's also one study that comes to mind was done in 1984 by Catalano and Kleiner, which supported the effectiveness of variable practice. They showed participants moving lights and asked them to move their hands as a way of predicting when that moving light would arrive at a certain position. For one group, the researchers varied the speed of the light between each trial. For another group, participants practiced one speed at a time. After the practices, participants were asked to do the same task but at entirely different speeds. And Chelsea, which group of participants do you think they did better on the task?
Well, based on my understanding, those who did variable practice performed much better as they were able to adapt to the changes in speed. Did I get that right?
You got it spot on. The researchers went on and elaborate that variable practice is superior because we can train our schemas on a stimulus to become more effective, generalizable, and capable of dealing with changes. One more important point is it is common for us to feel that variable practice is hard and you may not seem to improve in a short run, but these are referred to as desirable difficulties, which will allow you to better master your skill or retain your knowledge for a longer time.
So, for us students who are currently learning new skills and trying to adapt to variable practice, while our practice sessions might seem a little bit more frustrating and effortful, over time we will practice more consistently when applying skills with less overall time spent practicing.
Although people typically apply variable practice to sports, but you can also feel free to apply it to any skills you want to master or knowledge you want to acquire.
For more information on variable practice, visit the American Psychological Association's resources linked in the credits. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of A Student's Guide to Studying Smarter. We'll see you again next week. This podcast is a Courseware exclusive, starring Chelsea Kumar and guest starring Josie. Research and development by Morgan Hodgson and Lo Jin Yi. Produced and edited by Trisha Teo. The scriptwriters are Chelsea Kumar, Josie, Lo Jin Yi, Morgan Hodgson, and Trisha Teo.